Hey everybody. In this video I want to review with you the basics about works cited lists. At this point you've already written some of these so far this semester I've said not to worry about the little details, that we'll get to them later, and now is the time when we're getting to those little details. I didn't take this out. This is the slide that my 10th grader added. So if you heed her advice and don't use a works cited list, you're not going to do well in the class. So I would ignore this advice and move on. In this video, I want to talk to you first of all about why we bother with works cited lists. I want to talk about the big picture formatting issues, and I also want, we'll talk about alphabetical order and hanging indent. And then I'm going to want to talk about individual citations. We use MLA 8th edition style for this. MLA is Modern Language Association. As I've said before, it's just a particular set of rules that we use. And if you've written a research paper for another class, you maybe have used APA format. The rules are just slightly different, and they're easy enough to fix. So we'll talk about those too. And we're going to talk about what I call brown M&Ms. In fact, let's start with brown M&Ms. You may have already heard me tell this story about Van Halen. These are images of Van Halen, the band. Eddie Van Halen, one of the best guitar players in the world, recently died. May he rest in peace. Van Halen was famous in the 80s for their pyrotechnics in their stage show. And they also got a bad rap at one point because it was leaked to the media that in their contract, for each concert that they did, they demanded backstage in the green room a giant bowl of M&Ms with all the brown M&Ms removed. All the brown M&Ms removed. They didn't want to see any brown M&Ms in their big bowl of M&Ms. And when that first got released to the press, of course, everybody thought that they were just some sort of weird, egomaniacal rock band, right? Well, later David Lee Roth, this man here, the lead singer, there he is, explained that the brown M&Ms language wasn't really about brown M&Ms. It was a test. It was a test to see if people were paying attention. He explained that the equipment that they used for all the pyrotechnics in their stage shows was very dangerous, and they needed to know that people were following directions. So if they got to a concert venue and saw the bowl of M&Ms and it had brown ones in there, they knew that whoever had set up was not good at detail, was not good at following directions, and could not be trusted for the bigger stuff. So sometimes I like to refer to the details of MLA format as brown M&Ms. They aren't nearly as important as what's going on in your actual paper, but they signal something to your reader about your ability to get the bigger things down. Okay, so we'll talk about the brown M&Ms in this video as well. So first, let's talk about why we bother. First of all, as you know, it's the right thing to do. That's something we've talked about a lot this semester. It's very important to give your sources the proper credit for their work, whether you're using their exact words in quotation marks, or whether you're paraphrasing their words, or whether you're borrowing their bigger ideas. Those sources deserve credit. Secondly, it demonstrates your credibility as a researcher. When you're making a claim and you support it, you're showing that you've done your homework. You're showing your work. And then finally, it creates a paper trail so that your readers can find out more about the source. And they can even go find the source themselves if they want to, just like you may have done in your research when your source cited a good source. So let's take a look at an example. This is the works cited page from a sample paper on maternity leave, which you may have read by now. I hope you have. And you can see that this is a little bit hard to read, right? There's a lot of text here. So what we want to do is use hanging indent. Hanging indent is the opposite of a paragraph. In a regular paragraph, the first line is indented. But we want to indent every line after the first. So let me show you how to do that in Google Docs. Up here, you have this little cursor at the top of the menu bar. I'm going to move that in a ½ inch. And then this little top piece, I'm going to move back to the left. And that moves the first line over. And that's your hanging indent. You see how that's much easier to read now? So between that and the alphabetical order, we've created a very user-friendly works cited list. So if you're reading this paper and you want to know more about Miller that this writer cites, we just scroll down alphabetically and there's Miller and Alderman, and there's the information that we need. There should be a period there, and we can go find it if we want to. Okay, so a very user-friendly list. Notice everything is in alphabetical order. In this case, we have an example of an article that does not have an individual author, so it's alphabetized accordingly. And then the in-text citation would cite this title. So again, it's reader-friendly. Your reader can find this source on the works cited list quite easily. Okay. So now let's talk about the brown M&Ms and these individual citations and why they matter so much. This is the part I have not been picky about yet, but I will be in future assignments. So you will probably notice looking through these things that these citations have different kinds of information. Okay, so first of all, we have a source like Rubin, which seems like a pretty short citation compared to the source by Rawson where we have this extra information. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, it matters because a reader who knows MLA form is going to be able to tell something very easily about these sources just by glancing at them. This is the title of a newspaper or a magazine article. Forbes is a magazine. And all we need after a magazine is the date that it came out. Whereas this is a scholarly journal article. Scholarly journal article citations also require a volume number. And we know this is a PDF because she has actual physical page numbers here compared to this online magazine, which doesn't. You see how those little details tell us things. Okay. Also, some titles are in quotation marks. Notice how it's typically the title that's immediately following the author that's in quotation marks, and others have italics after them. I'm going to fill in this missing period there. Other titles are in italics. So this is also important. What we do, and you've noticed in the source analysis worksheets, I asked you to put the titles of the articles in quotation marks. Okay. But titles of the magazines, newspapers, or periodicals that publish them are in italics. So different kinds of titles, different kinds of works require different indicators. And the way that you do them in your works cited list is also the way that you'll use them in your paper itself. So if you wanted to refer to the Journal of Health Economics in your paper because that's impressive sounding, you would italicize that title. And if you would want to refer to the title of an article in your paper, you would put that in quotation marks within your essay itself. Okay, so these are pretty small brown M&Ms, but they really do help the reader understand something important about your source, and that's why they matter. One more thing I wanted to emphasize when we're looking at this example is how any sources that come from one search or another kind of database are indicated this way. After we have the regular information, for the source, we add the container. MLA calls publication titles and databases containers for the sources. So we have the name of the database followed by the DOI, the Digital Object Index number. Or it might be, in this case, a URL. That's how I'm going to know that you met the requirement for having at least a couple sources from databases and at least one scholarly journal article. Okay. I also want to point out, as long as we're here, how good these sources are. Notice how she's got a number of scholarly journals. You may not need that many scholarly journals. Some of them are really hard to understand. You'll definitely want to stick to the ones that are usable. But she's got a nice mix of different kinds of sources here. A newspaper article. Notice too how she indicates two authors. In this case, the second author is listed first name first. And in this case, we have three or more authors. Okay. So how do you know how to format all of these things? Well, one way is that when you are working in the databases, you can check the box to have it create a citation for you, and it will. So that's pretty nice. You can use that. You can use different online tools to help you, but I just want to make you aware of where you can find it in our where you can find this information in our course site. So if you go to content and you look at this first category here, course information, syllabus schedule, etc., here's the nuts and bolts reading guide. I've referred you to this document a bunch of times already this semester. And if you look at the table of contents, pages 7 through 9 are the relevant documents. So let me scroll down here real quick. Okay, so this just reviews some of the stuff that I've already spoken with you about today. And then now we're going to start getting into the different elements of individual citations. Okay, here is a little bit more explanation of each of those elements. Okay, and then finally on page 9, I have basic formats for the most common kinds of sources I see in your papers. Now, if you're using something else like a video or an interview or a tweet, you can Google how to find those citations, or I can help you with that as well. But notice, let's just skip down to 4 and 5 because these are the formats you'll be using most frequently. 4, 5, and 6. Magazine and newspaper, the formats are the same typically. Okay. Notice how there are different kinds of punctuation. So typically after the author's name, you have a period. After the title of the article, you have a period. Okay. This is the same in both of these. And then after the title of the periodical, you have a comma. If it's a magazine or journal, you'll have the volume and the number, and then the date, followed by the page numbers and a period, and then the name of the database, DOI, and URL, and then every citation should end with a period. Again, these are brown M&Ms. They're little itty bitty tiny details. They aren't nearly as important as getting something down on the works cited list, but they do signal your professionalism and your attention to detail. So please do give some attention to these little tiny details, and let me know if you have any questions. Again, it is always okay to use online tools to help you format these citations, but know that those helpers aren't always perfect. You have to know what information to enter, first of all, and they will occasionally make mistakes, so you'll want to proofread anything that you have automatically generated for you. I think that's all I wanted to go over today. Oh, let me show you one other thing, as long as we're in content. If you scroll down here to ethical source use, there's a lot of information here that I've already provided for you to read this semester. And then there's a whole submodule here on works cited lists. So the sample that I was showing you earlier is in here. There's a couple videos from other sources that are in here that might be useful to you as well. Okay. Enjoy your works cited list. Let me know if you have any questions at all. I know these details can be kind of stressful, but just remember the bigger picture goals, and hopefully the smaller details will help, will fall into place as well. Bill and I are both here for your questions. Have fun.